Hello, I'm very glad to be joined today by Nigel Hughes from Outstanding.Global, who's going to be talking to us about how ethical considerations play in his business, particularly with the production of the forthcoming film CHEETAH. Okay, Nigel, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Oh, golly, how do I introduce myself? It's
Well, tell us a little bit about your background.
okay. So I've been a performer for many years as part of my background. I've also run a couple of organizations, award-winning organizations, but now I'm in my kind of third iteration of Outstanding.Global. And really it came about because I was in 2018, I was beginning to think about my 70th birthday, which happened last year. And I was thinking, okay, what do? Do I lie down? Do I stop? Am I supposed to retire? And I thought, no, I've got far too much energy and far too much passion. So let's see if I can channel it into something. So really, Outstanding.Global, it's about synthesizing everything that I've been doing over many years around business, around environment, and around the arts, and finding a way to really pull those three elements together. And what our aim is to help people connect nature and human nature. Does that give you a kind of scope?
It absolutely does. Thank you very much. So tell us a little bit about the film CHEETAH.
Oh, CHEETAH. CHEETAH, the movie, as its now brand name is. Rick, my husband, who I've lived with for a number of years, started writing a drama, and we sent it around, and he was getting incredibly good feedback about the drama. But somebody said, actually, this is very cinematographic. It's much more illustrative than you think it is. So how about making this into a film? And he said, well, I don't really have experience of screenwriting, but I can give it a go. So he did. The other thing really, the story is about cheetah and people. And it's specifically about the Asiatic cheetah, which is in severe decline. There are fewer than 50 left in the world. And of course, that raises issues, not just about cheetah, but about the way humankind is interacting with nature. So CHEETAH, the story, is really about the dynamic between the cheetah itself and the people who were working and living alongside, specifically the Asiatic cheetah, which of course is set in Iran. And it's a feature film, and we are now in pre-production, and we're setting up to film, we hope, in October, COVID willing. We don't know where yet, we don't know who with yet, but it's very, very challenging and very exciting stage of development.
Brilliant. So at this stage, what aims do you have for the film? What are you hoping to achieve?
Number one is we need to make a really enjoyable movie that people will enjoy, and I really feel very strongly that the script and the story is a very enjoyable one, because it focuses on the family, it focuses on an interaction, and it focuses on finding a way to live with this incredible dynamic of the cheetah. So number one, quality and enjoyment. That's our aim. Secondly, it's really to raise the awareness around the plight of this extraordinary cheetah. And you know, the foyer moment, you know, when you've watched the movie, you've finished your popcorn and you finished your whatever it is, and you go out and you look at whoever you've been with and went, oh, what was that then? Oh, did you enjoy it? Yes. So it's that moment that we're trying to go, okay, well, how can we capture people's inspiration? How can we capture their action? What do we want people to do, think, feel differently? So really, it's about raising the awareness. And secondly, what we're doing is we're wrapping around an education program so that people can actually go back to the website and say, okay, these are a number of things that we're now aware of, and these are a number of things that we've got some choices to do so that we can find a way, in our own way, to protect cheetah.
Excellent. Yeah. So as the film moves forward, what kind of principles are you trying to live by as you develop this project?
Yeah. Well, number one is about, as I said, quality. We're making sure that we're doing a quality movie, but also a sustainable movie. And this is my first time making a movie. This is Rick's first time making a movie. The good news is, the really, really good news is we've got an Oscar-winning Academy Award producer who is working alongside with us. You know, and Gareth Ellis-Unwin, who was the producer of The King's Speech and other fantastic movies. So, you know, we're really excited that we've got that partnership. And when we were talking about the aims of the movie, of course, sustainability came to the top of mind. So for me, sustainability, and actually it's also part of my background and Rick's background, is about that, you know, that Sioux Indian phrase, thinking about the next 7 generations. So every decision that you make, you consider the impact of the next 7 generations. So therefore, sustainability is an organic, but it's also a very live and it's a very challenging concept, but also how to make that practical.
Excellent. Yeah. So you mentioned several aims there that I imagine need to be balanced. So you want to make a quality film that's entertaining. You want to raise awareness of the plight of the Asiatic cheetah. You want to do it in a sustainable way. Do those things sometimes pull against each other?
Ooh. I think everything pulls against each other because, of course, you know, we're in this world where we are totally unknown. And we just don't know. Oh, there's my producer just checking up on me. So we're into the unknown. Now, the good thing is, in the world of TV, of course, there is the Albert Sustainable Principles. And the Albert Sustainable Principles have really taken into account sustainability at its core. And what we're now doing is we're now beginning to adapt the sustainability core values through Albert and applying them to the movie industry. In my own background, we started work with the rainforest in Papua New Guinea, and Rick and I have had a long-term relationship. And it's really where we learned a lot about the sustainable practicalities, because we went back in, you know, way back in the 80s, we went to explore thriving rainforest, sustainable rainforest. And we happened to come across an area of pristine beauty in the Huntsdown Range in Papua New Guinea. And we discovered that it was under threat of the largest industrial logging operation at its time. So that was number one. It's like, oh, found this fantastic rainforest, found there was a threat. So what we did is we worked with the local people, because of course, one of the things that we needed to understand is, did they know what they had was precious? They kind of knew, but you know, when you live in a rainforest and you're very, very remote, you don't quite know that you've got a jewel. So that was part of the raising the awareness for us and for them. And we created this wonderful partnership. So over the years, we've actually managed to protect that 2,000 square miles of thriving rainforest. But they asked us a really, really good question. And I think this is where the dynamic of sustainability comes in for me. It's about this partnership. It's a dynamic partnership that we have to keep constantly creating and recreating. So the question they asked was, what are the big trees like in your place? Rick and I looked at each other and we went, And we said, I'm sorry, we lost many of our big trees many years ago. Why don't you go home and do something about that? They said. But we went, yeah, why don't we? Why don't you come with us? So over the years, we created what we call a global kinship, really helping us to understand each other, our cultural conditions, our natural conditions, and all the obstacles that might come in the way. But by them asking us that question, what we then did was we did come home and we did start working with our local community, helping to create new, sustainably managed woodland. And we've been doing that for the past 28 years. So it's applying that thinking. You know, number one, you have an aim. Number two, you have an obstacle, and then you have to find all the creative solutions in order to overcome the obstacles. And that's really what we will be doing as a team by making CHEETAH, the movie, in a sustainable way.
Excellent. Yeah. So I think for many of us trying to be environmentally friendly, the effect of our actions on, say, rainforest seems quite abstract. We haven't been there. It's something going on the other side of the world. So do you feel like it really encouraged you to be more sustainable because you actually saw firsthand the kind of environments that might be damaged by our actions?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Because we live in a 450-year-old cottage. What we started to do was to think, well, how can we retrofit this cottage to be as sustainable as possible? Solar power. We've now installed a whole bank of photovoltaics. You know, we've had them for about 15 years now. Everything we grow organically. We've registered everything that we have now organically. So we're registered organic. We've got as much as sustainable energy source. We grow our own wood. We burn it in our log burners. But most importantly, we've really helped to guide others. And when Greenlight Trust, the organization that Rick and I set up as a response to the rainforest work that we did, when we needed to have a headquarters, because we were working in this office and there were about 12 of us, and you can see it's not a very large office. So we had to find a way to create a building. And we saw an old traction engine shed up at the other end of the village, 1840s. And I thought, okay, well, if we're going to convert this engine shed into an efficient, sustainable building, we need to look at what the principles are. So again, going back to thinking about the next 7 generations. And what we did with the team is I said, okay, we're not only going to create a sustainable building, but we're going to win an award for this. And guess what? We have no money and we have a year to do it in. Let's start. So what we did, we drew a boundary. I said, okay, let's see if we can source all the materials within a 25-mile radius. Anything that comes in that is packaged needs to be recycled through our fortnightly blue recycle bin. You know, so we didn't recycle on an industrial scale. So then we started talking to everybody about how can we make this possible. So therefore, sustainability triangle, we put environment right at the top. Then we put social, then we put economic. We had lots of community involvement. You know, volunteers came and we used hemp and lime, and it's been a really good exercise in community engagement. And guess what? We won the East of England Royal Architects Sustainability Award in 2006. So I was really rather proud of that. So that's kind of, for me, sustainability starting at home, then of course applying those principles into the business, and then hoping to create a global awareness.
Yeah. So it seems important that sustainability has to work on all those scales, right down to what you're putting in a bin at your HQ, right up to thinking about the impact you're having on the whole world and the relationships you have with the whole world. Yeah, fascinating. It's interesting to hear there that even though Greenlight Trust is planting woodlands and so on, that doesn't automatically mean that it's environmentally positive. You have to care about every single component of that. If there's packaging coming in that shouldn't be coming in or that's not getting recycled, doesn't matter if you're planting trees over there, you're still not meeting your responsibilities environmentally. So there's threats to sustainability around every corner. You've got to be aware of all these different aspects of the impact you're having on the world.
Yeah, and of course the knock-on of making that decision about recycling anything that came in is that we then created a fantastic relationship with our local building merchants.
Mm.
And they went, okay, well, if you're asking us to recycle everything, take it back, ta-da. And then their yardsman actually said, oh, now, if you as a customer are asking that, there may well be other customers. So actually, the impact was that they created a much more sustainable delivery and supply chain than they'd thought of before. And then having won the award of Green Light for the Foundry, then we started working with what we called the low carbon champions through B&Q stores. And every store in the UK then had a low carbon champion assigned. And then we had a number of businesses, particularly in the east of England, that over the years, over 5 years, we did our evaluation, and totally there was a 19% reduction in carbon, which I think, is one of those things, just by our own need of having to create our own building in a sustainable way, by constantly asking those questions and pushing the boundaries a little, then of course we help to raise not only our own awareness, but businesses, and then, as we said, that global awareness. Yeah,
it spreads, doesn't it? It spreads. It doesn't just stay localized to what you're doing. It starts to affect other things around you positively. Yeah. So let me ask you a question. So I noticed there when you were talking about Green Light Trust, you said environmental's top priority, then social, and then economic. And Green Light Trust is a charity. So now that we're doing a film, that sounds more like a business than a charity. Has that affected that priority at all, or are you still able to keep that order of priority?
Great question. Well done, Tom. Yes, it does. Because, of course, one of the things that we were doing when we started the discussions with Bedlam Productions is that, Rick and I were very clear about we need to find a way to make this as ethically sustainable as possible. And I think that was one of the attractions for our producer, because of his track record and him wanting to leave a legacy of films that make a difference. I think it was one of those attractive elements. And because, again, my background in the business world, because I'm a business consultant and look at sustainability leadership, it's always that thing about how can you adapt personal principles into the professional world that make an impact on the bottom line, on the shareholders, because everybody's interested in that, but mostly on the thinking and the behaviors of the people working in industries and across industries. So it's about applying all the grand principles that we have and making sure. So for the film, of course, we absolutely are into the unknown. We've got our principles. We're measuring things as best we can. The good thing is, of course, over this past year when this film has been in development, Gareth and the team and I have only met once face to face, because of course of all the COVID travel restrictions. So that's in a way, and Gareth said, well, I would have had at least 50 meetings over the year, once a week. Blah, blah, blah. So in fact, already, the carbon footprint is lower. And we're not just talking about carbon footprint, we're talking about carbon consciousness. And I think, again, that's part of the story that we're trying to tell with CHEETAH, because it's so many facets of, this endangered species is, what's the word I want? It's kind of, it's at the mercy of all sorts of things way beyond its control. So therefore, humankind, we have to find a way to help.
Yeah. So it sounds like that aim of protecting the cheetah is the kind of core around which all these other things revolve. So if an investor came along and said, I've got £1 million check for you, but I want this film to be about the African cheetah instead, how would that go down?
Okay, good. Of course, cheetah are cheetah, and the cheetah itself is dwindling in its population. And if the investor came along and said, I want this to be about the African cheetah, my answer would be, it is. Because cheetah itself is the issue. And in our education program, what we're doing is that we're helping people understand, the bigger picture of the cheetah. And then we're looking specifically, drilling down, funneling down into the Asiatic cheetah itself. So I think, again, we can find a way to make that balance, because the cheetah issue, the African cheetah issue, will be addressed because people's awareness will be raised around that. But then specifically, we're talking about this Asiatic cheetah, as I said, that has fewer than 50 left.
Great. So imagine this: if this project was being done by somebody who really was about the single bottom line, profit and nothing else, what would be different?
I think we have to look at bigger than profit, because this is a bigger issue than profit. Now, of course, the movie needs to make profit. And, we're talking about a profit corridor that will actually go specifically to save the cheetah cause. So after all the investors, after all the people who've invested not only their money, but their time and their passion have been paid, then there is a profit corridor that we're now negotiating about how people get a return, but most importantly, how that profit corridor benefits the plight, specifically of the Asiatic cheetah. So again, I think we can find a way to make this balance so that we can satisfy.
That's interesting, yeah. So from things you're saying earlier, let's say somebody was making this film and just didn't care about sustainability considerations at all, then maybe that means they can do something cheaper, but at the cost of the planet. Maybe they make a bit more money that way, right? So one thing is, if you're not pursuing just profit, there are these other considerations that come in. But the interesting extra thing you raised there is it's not just about balancing profit and other things, it's about what you do with the profit once you've got it, right? So it sounds to me like you're saying there are ethical considerations there as well. So when you're thinking about that profit corridor, it's thinking, well, what happens next? Sure, there's been these environmental benefits, this awareness benefit and so on, and there's also been this profit. But then how do we use that profit responsibly? So that's part of the picture.
Yes, yeah.
Brilliant. So something I come across sometimes when studying business ethics and teaching business ethics is people being suspicious of the whole idea of business ethics. So some people say business is just about profit, and the idea of business ethics is just a naive fantasy. It's not about the real world. What would you say to a skeptic like that? I
would say, let's have your naivety. Yes, because of course, the thing for me is that we I think, as I said earlier, we are in an unknown world now. I think from this time last year, when the COVID-19 hit globally, another pandemic. Don't forget, Rick and I have lived through, we've lived through the AIDS and HIV pandemic. There's been bird flus, there's been SARS, there's been all sorts of things. There's been, the Ebola pandemic. But this is another pandemic. So for me, this is where the connecting nature and human nature comes in, is that I think we need to, without sounding too grand or pompous, but we really need to start thinking about listening to nature and the impact that humankind are having. So therefore, if we're purely running our businesses for profit, yes, because the world needs profit, because then those people will spend their money in another way. But it's looking about, dare I say, the meaning of life. Because you can't eat money, and you can only spend money so much. And I think what's happening now with the big profiteers, they're beginning to think about how they can actually spend their profits in a more sustainable, ethical, societal, beneficial way. He said it in very technical terms.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.